Thank you very much, and welcome to our members from the department that are with us here today. I know that you're going through the sort of performance reports here. There's quite a lot of different areas that you have highlighted, and I suppose there's just a few things that I might just go through with you as well, and thank you for your statements. Excuse me, as I get a frog in the throat, but according to this, you're looking at school buildings and school places according to the National Development Plan. And I suppose for me, in the area I'm in, I've heard some of our representatives here talk about the development and the sort of new buildings and so on. For me, based in Ballinasloe and representing Roscommon Galway, there's a real challenge there around new school builds at the moment, and I suppose that's some of the questions I might have, and potentially maybe it's for Ms. Kerwin under the school planning and building section perhaps. But can I ask, particularly around a school planning area, particularly around primary schools, what's the average number of schools within a school planning area? So, for example, in Ballinasloe, it's been indicated there are 17. Now, I've made a number of requests to find out what schools are in that school planning area, and I still haven't received a response, but not to yourselves now directly, but just in general to the Oireachtas liaison. But can I just ask, how is this identified? You're using the Geographical Information Service. You're using probably, I guess, data from Census 2022. I'm guessing it's feeding into that GIS service as well. But for Ballinasloe townland area, there is primary school capacity issues. I have only recently invited the Minister, and I'd love to invite you down as well to Ballinasloe, because there's a number of excellent things that are happening, but there are real challenges in that area and in that space. So how, with this school planning report here, which is great because it indicates the amount of work that's done, and I know in 2022 you had 108 bills, which is wonderful. I'd be curious about that figure actually, what are new bills and what is additional accommodation, because you have been excellent in terms of providing additional accommodation classes, or classrooms, sorry. But my concern here is, how do you connect between the two, between the school planning area here for Ms. Kerwin and who manages here transport? Apologies, that I don't know. Who manages the transport section? How, when Ms. Kerwin says there's a capacity issue here, there's a capacity issue. The school has no more primary school places. They have no space to put down additional accommodation, which is the case for a number of schools here. How do we then say, actually, do you know what, now we need buses put in place, and it has to be outside of the strict remit of school transport at the moment. We're going to put buses in place to ferry children from the town out to maybe a 5 or 10k radius to make sure that capacity is there. How is that managed? So I suppose, sorry, that's number one question, if I might. And then just around the school transport, the extra funds, I believe it's over 90 million. I'm open to correction on that in the budget this year. How are those funds going to be used to provide additional transport in terms of what's your planning around that? How are we going to support? How do we engage with Bus Éireann? What are your links with Bus Éireann, for example, around this? I deal particularly with the Bus Éireann transport section in Galway, and it can be difficult because we haven't had buses, we don't have infrastructure, and the challenge around drivers. What's your plan in the Department of Education to improve that? Because it's still a challenge, and it's a challenge for a lot of regional areas, and I represent regional areas here. Just on the Climate Action Fund, we talked about solar panels there. I spoke with Minister Eamon Ryan, who did visit Roscommon County Council only last week, and indicated that this fund would open shortly. This fund was supposed to open last year. So when is shortly? When is that going to happen? Because he indicated it would be through the Department of Education. And then subsequent to that, what's the planning process here? Because you are giving project managers to schools to have them manage projects. But how are you going to help them manage applying for solar panels? Is there going to be a recommendation of X solar panel for X size roof? Is it going to be with SEAI? Is it going to be that you're going to give a project manager? Is there going to be like a one-stop shop for each county area for them to apply? Or is it going to be up to a principal to do this work? Who's going to do the work of actually identifying how and to get it implemented and to get people on place and everything to do that? I'd just be curious. If I might just leave those three questions, and if I have time to come back in, Chair, I'd really appreciate it, if that's okay. And thank you again for your attention to these matters.
Okay, thank you, Senator. I might ask Ms. Kerwin, but I suppose just before she comes in, I suppose the specifics of Ballinasloe, I'm not sure that
I very much understand.
The team here.
I take that on board, and I know you'll hopefully come back to me.
What I will say is that we will, the colleagues in the Planning and Building Unit who deal with the specifics of that area, we can pass on your comments in relation to that. But I think more generally, she can talk just a little bit bit about the processes that I think behind some of what you raised in terms of how the additional accommodation or the planning goes ahead, if that's...
Well, school buildings and school places, that's the two NDP, Thanks.
Thanks, Senator, for the questions. I do know Ballinasloe, it's not too far away from me. I'm from Birr. Just in relation to the school planning areas, I suppose, first of all, and how many schools is in each school planning area, primary level and post-primary level, it varies. And it varies in relation to, it's kind of grouped by small areas. There's 4,000 schools across the country. There's 314 school planning areas, and I am aware it was raised at the last time we were here before you, where Mr. Hubert Loftus was present on behalf of the Department of Education. I suppose. And I know the issue was raised in relation to the getting access to the school planning areas and what's in them, and that is being worked on at the moment to actually give that information out. In relation to how we strategically plan, I mean, we do take, yes, the census numbers, we do take in relation to the enrolments, we do take the class size, the projects that are actually up and coming in the area, and also we'd look at in relation to housing developments in the area.
Exactly, and thank you.
And that is really a really important part of it. And at this moment in time, like, we are working through all of our projects coming through the pipeline, and we're actually looking at like the growth, and not in just the growth in the town per se, but looking if it's a large town, if it's in the east of the town, the west of the town. So that is like, we are, making sure that we're actually targeting where the school building projects need to be.
So if I may, and only thank you, and I know, Valerie, that you may know the area quite well, actually, just that we do have potentially another 200 units, 200 homes coming on stream for next September, which are not in the census, which are not in GIS, and I suppose how are you linking in with the likes of the local authority? How are you linking in then when you say, I know this because I've talked to all the principals. I know that they are full in the town area. There's a real concern there. I suppose what I want to ask in general is, how do you link in with the county councils? How are you linking in with the rails teams? And then how do you link in with your colleagues here to say, knock, knock, school transport, there is a major issue here. How are we going to work out a plan? Because what I want to work on right now is a plan for this September. That's why I'm really focusing a lot of my questions around this, because I want to understand, how do I best present, or how do we work together to have a plan in place for September?
And absolutely, and in relation to the residential developments, we get information, or forward planning area gets direct information directly from the local authorities in relation to planning developments.
From the planning office in the local authority?
I can't say, I can come back to you on that in relation to where, but it is definitely one of the assessment criteria that they conduct in relation to capacity demands of an area.
So just to understand, the county council take it on themselves to contact you, the Department of Education, to say, oh look, we now have additional development?
No, we'd be proactive in that in relation to it. Absolutely. In relation to the number of planning applications, the number of developments.
So you have somebody within your area that contacts the county council on a regular basis?
Yeah, and like, I'll have to come back to you exactly, but it's a structured approach in relation to receiving this information.
Could I get a response maybe to the committee, just how that happens and how regular that is? Okay, and then specifically, my question would be around who's the person in Galway and Roscommon for that, actually. Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I thought that I had that on silent. My apologies.
No problem at all. And I suppose then in relation to, capacity planning, and we mentioned all of those parts, but then after that, then there is engagement with the school authorities as well in relation to, utilising full capacity, and then to find where additional capacity is needed.
And so what point do you talk to school transport?
When
there's no additional accommodation, say, for example, and you know that you have to get out to a school in a rural area that's maybe a 2-teacher school. Yeah,
in actual fact, only yesterday there was actually a meeting between school transport and the planning and building unit.
Okay.
And I suppose it's to actually have engaged. I mean, there is always engagement between them, but it was actually to kind of have more structured engagement in relation to these issues.
So you now have a regular meeting between the school planning area and the transport area for all issues across the country, I guess, where there's capacity issues?
It was just more that we were saying it was just more to kind of put some structure in place to actually happen, because at this moment in time it's probably more kind of ad hoc engagement, but it's to put a structure.
Well, I'd love
in
to
place.
support you with a more structured engagement on that, Ms. Kerwin. Can I just ask who here is responsible over the school transport section, if I might ask? Sorry, Gavin, I don't know, or Mr. O'Leary.
Yes, Senator, we were limited to 6 officials, so unfortunately there's nobody here from the school transport area, but if there's specific queries, we'd be happy to pass them on.
So my main thing is, number one, when will the report be out? I'm sure my other colleagues have asked the same thing, and I'm sure the Cahirlock here as well, just around the school transport review. Do we have any idea when that's going to come out? And then secondly, that structured engagement, I really believe that needs to happen where there's crisis areas, where we have challenges around school capacity potentially in September, that there will be structured engagement and highlighted key areas across the country where there are challenges. I would really appreciate commitment towards that from yourselves, if that could be considered.
We'll certainly pass that on in terms of, and I think what Ms. Kerwin has outlined is that there's already work in that direction ongoing, yeah.
Thank you. Then just on the Climate Act, I'm sorry, just one other point for Ms. Kerwin. I would love to invite you. The really positive things we are seeing in the area is that our town is growing. We've nearly 1,000 young children in primary school, with another 1,000 in post-primary, and both are very long, over 100 years old, both Garbley College and Ard School, where our boys' school and girls' school, my own school actually, are in the midst of have submitted an amalgamation request to yourselves. So there's an amalgamation request gone into the department, and from what I understand, it's very positive, this development. There's been a lot of buy-in, there's a lot of public engagement, consultation with all stakeholders. I suppose the next part will be the process of that amalgamation so that it's successful, and then just maybe what's required. So again, I know that it would be wonderful if it was possible for once this process has reached a conclusion in terms of the amalgamation step, but that there would be an opportunity there to meet with the school planning area to identify how best to do this, because their date, from what I understand, their planned date would be 2025, and they're very active, proactive principals there that are actually working now towards ensuring that every plan is put in place. But can I just ask, around these amalgamations, what would the normal process be, and is there an opportunity there for for example, for the schools there to engage with the school planning area and so on about what's required? Because now this will be 1,000 students together in classes, and currently some of the Art School, where is a not brand new build, about 15 years old. To me, that's new. But Garbley would be an older building with a lot of challenges in terms of the maintenance of those buildings.
So, thanks, Deputy. I'll ask Ms. Kerwin to come in shortly, but I mean, I know certainly the colleagues in Tullamore in the Planning and Building Unit that the amalgamation of schools is something that they have handled before, and that there are processes there. I mean, the actual physical structures are part of it, but they're not all of it, and that there's a lot of work around the bringing together of the two school communities. And as you indicated, Senator, these school communities have a long history, and there can be challenges sometimes in terms of bringing an amalgamation successfully to a conclusion, but it has been done in there's lots of instances around the country where there have been successful amalgamations. But I think maybe Ms. Kerwin, do you want to just kind of come back a little bit more on some of the details?
All the questions are coming to you.
No problem, Senator. Yeah, look, we can come back to you through the chair in relation to the process for the amalgamation process and document it down. Again,
we have a new school build in Scull and Creenafe at 27 years waiting. You always hear me speaking of this, but 27 years. That will be happening, got planning permission approved in 3 years' time. That will only increase now because of the increase already in the school by maybe 10 extra places. And that amalgamation, again, would be for 1,000 students, and that will happen in 2025. Can I just ask then, just on the question around school transport, just the review date, is there any indication of when that review date may be?
I don't have a specific date, Deputy. I know that the Minister has spoken about this in the Houses in relation to it, and I know that she is keen to have that review finalised, but I don't have a specific date on that at the moment. So.
Okay, that ideally would happen before next year.
Do us with a date, or come back to the Secretariat with more information, that because it has been asked quite a number of times.
Chair, certainly we could come back with an update on that, but I'm not sure that it would be at official level that we can commit to a specific date. I think that the Minister will be the one who will decide on the date.
If you bring it back to the Secretary General and say that the committee are looking for an update of where the review is and when they expect it, Yeah, one more, if we have the next group ready to come in.
Can I just ask on the Climate Action Fund, the solar panels, what planning has been put in place to manage that when the fund is announced, and shortly is the date that's been indicated? So who within this area, or is it within someone's remit here?
So that's, again, the planning and building unit. I don't think
you do everything. I hope you have an excellent team, because it seems you're doing everything around here at the moment.
I don't think it's your specific responsibility, but I know you've been involved, and so Ms. Carmen.
I just asked, just how is it going to work practically? I deal with principals day in, day out that are at their wits' end. Principals that are trying to manage getting either emergency accommodation, emergency repairs, dealing now with, summer schools over the summer period, getting additional people in, just on a project management level. How can we streamline this, or what are your plans? Yeah,
this, look, first of all, I'm conscious that this has been announced some while ago. And it is a collaboration between ourselves in the Department of Education and also Environment, Climate and Communications. It is, as you said, from the Climate Action Fund. And I suppose there's been a rigorous process in relation to due diligence and governance. We've been actually building the systems for it and developing, the technical work is progressing well also. It's imminent, is what I will say.
Imminent? Is that quicker than shortly, or is shortly better than imminent? Which is
I'll get out of the thesaurus and see. But
so imminent sounds positive.
Well, it's very, very near ready. And I suppose the work we've done across in the Department of Education is to making it probably as simplified as possible for schools.
For principals. We need to indicate who is the person that will do the work here.
And we're developing a system that's very interactive between the school and the department, and so that it should. When it's launched, it should be very, very straightforward. And the implementation of that, getting someone in, the contractors, you'll have recommended contractors to do this. Yeah, and there'll be within each county. I'm not sure in relation to the framework of contractors is there, but we will have SAI as assistance also in this, but they have to be registered with SAI. So there's a process in relation to that, but it is straightforward, and it is the 6 kilowatts of solar panels. Yeah, that would be really wonderful. It will bring down costs, particularly the cost of heating and everything else for schools, so it's much needed, but the implementation process is a concern. And last question that
very briefly,
that you might reply to us again separately, but just the counselling, it was just mentioned in the report there, there's no results obviously because it started in 2023. There's a pilot at the moment for 7 counties around counselling in primary schools. What's the plan to expand that pilot? When is that going to happen? I don't know if you have time to respond to that, but that's my question on that. And you might come back to us then separately on the State Examinations Commission and measures been put in place to support them with the new subjects and the review of the new subjects. So I don't know if you can briefly say anything around the expansion of the pilot and counselling, and then to come back to us maybe about measures been put in place to support the State Examinations Commission.
Thank you. We can come back to you with a fuller briefing note, because I'm conscious of
those issues.
Yeah, on all we'll take note of all the issues, but we'll include those and also the specific on.
Have you got does anyone have a reply on the counselling issues just before?
Expansion of counselling.
Yeah. I think Mr. Whelan can talk to that.
Yeah, so we got funding last year for the counselling for the pilot, and we've also secured funding for the continuation of that pilot for the next school year as well. So into
for the 7 counties.
Yeah, in same areas. Yeah, so the pilot, and then there'll be an evaluation of those pilots in the strand 1 and strand 2 in different regions and different counties as well. So we have the pilot is ongoing. That's only started for the 23-24 school year. So that's the first year of it hasn't even completed. There'll be an evaluation of that. We're rolling it out again. We have funding secured to go beyond that. And as part of that,
but just within those 7 counties, I suppose, is it? You don't have funding to expand.
Not to the same schools or to different schools, or
I understand the pilot is to continue for the 23-24 in those school years. So for those schools, the extra funding, it hasn't been, the final decision has been made on that, but we have an envelope to go forward again. But before you go to the next step, you have to evaluate any pilot scheme. We want to make sure we make the next steps right. So we do the evaluation first, make the decisions, then going forward on the next step.
That's okay.
Thank you.